Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. The information in this video is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional career or financial advice. The views expressed are based on personal experience and industry research. You should always conduct your own due diligence and consult with a professional before making any career decisions. Less than 1% of people who apply to Goldman Sachs get a job offer. Let that sink in. That's a lower acceptance rate than Harvard, Stanford, and Yale combined. We're talking about one of the most ferocious, cutthroat, and sought-after career paths on the planet. And every single year, hundreds of thousands of the brightest students in the United States throw their resumes into this meat grinder, hoping to be the one who makes it out with a six-figure offer before they can even legally rent a car. Most of them fail. And they fail because they're playing a game without knowing the rules. You've been told a story your whole life. Get perfect grades, go to a great school, pick the right major, and the doors to Wall Street will swing wide open. That story is a lie. It's a dangerous oversimplification that leads thousands of brilliant, hardworking students straight to a rejection email that reads, "Thank you for your interest, but due to the high volume of applications, your 4.0 GPA from a state school? It might get your resume deleted in under 3 seconds. Your finance degree from a non-target university? It's likely not even seen by a human being. The system is designed to filter you out. The gatekeepers at bulge bracket banks like Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs have built a fortress, and your diploma is not the key. But what if you had the blueprint to that fortress? What if you knew exactly what the gatekeepers were looking for? Not the generic advice you read on a college career services pamphlet, but the unwritten rules, the hidden signals, and the specific qualifications that separate the candidates who get interviews from the ones who get ignored. That is exactly what this presentation will give you. This is your playbook. We are going to dismantle the entire investment banking recruitment process piece by piece, so you can build a profile so powerful, so targeted, that banks have no choice but to notice you. We will cover the 3 pillars of every successful application: your degree, your university, and the critical X factor that ties it all together. I've seen this from both sides. I've seen friends with perfect resumes from Ivy League schools get mercilessly cut, left wondering what they did wrong. And I've seen kids from schools I'd barely heard of, with seemingly average backgrounds, waltz into Super Day interviews and walk out with multiple offers. The difference wasn't intellect. It wasn't work ethic. It was their strategic understanding of the game. So let's start with pillar number 1, the foundation of your entire application: your degree and your GPA. This is the first hurdle, the first filter, and it's where most aspiring bankers make their first critical mistake. The great myth is that you must major in finance. It seems logical, right? You want to work in finance, so you study finance. But in reality, banks couldn't care less if your degree says finance on it. What they care about is proof of 2 things: quantitative ability and raw intelligence. A finance major can signal that, but so can many other things. In fact, some of the most successful analysts I've known were physics, engineering, or even philosophy majors. So what should you study? Let's break down the majors into tiers, from the perspective of a Wall Street recruiter. Tier 1, the gold standard, are what we call the target majors. These are economics, finance, and accounting. If you're at a top school, majoring in one of these is the most direct, well-trodden path to an investment banking interview. Why? Because the curriculum directly overlaps with the skills you'll need on day 1. An economics degree proves you understand macro trends and market forces. An accounting degree is even more powerful, because accounting is the literal language of business. If you can read a financial statement, a balance sheet, an income statement, a cash flow statement, as easily as you can read a book, you are already 10 steps ahead of the competition. A finance major, of course, is the most obvious, teaching you the fundamentals of valuation, corporate finance, and portfolio management. If you choose one of these, you are signaling to banks, "I get it. I know what this job is, and I've prepared for it." Now for Tier 2, the high-potential quant majors. This is where it gets interesting. This bucket includes majors like engineering, computer science, mathematics, statistics, and even physics. Banks love these majors. Why would a bank want a chemical engineer? Because they know that anyone who can survive a partial differential equations exam has the mental horsepower and the work ethic to handle a 100-hour work week. These majors are a proxy for raw intelligence and problem-solving ability. You've proven you can handle incredibly complex, abstract systems. Learning how to build a discounted cash flow model will be child's play for you. If you're a STEM major, your story is simple. I am one of the smartest people in my class, I have an insane work ethic, and I've decided to apply my quantitative brain to finance. It's a powerful narrative. Finally, we have Tier 3, the longshot majors, and this is for all my humanities and liberal arts students out there. I'm talking about history, English, political science, philosophy. Can you get into investment banking with a history degree? Absolutely. But your path is harder. You have to work twice as hard to prove your quantitative chops. A bank sees a history major and their first thought is, can this person even use Excel? Your job is to proactively destroy that assumption. You need to load your transcript with quantitative courses. You must take accounting, statistics, and corporate finance as electives. You need to teach yourself financial modeling until you're better at it than the finance majors. Your story has to be compelling. I chose to study history not because I'm bad at math, but because I love analyzing complex systems and building a narrative. I've spent 4 years deconstructing the fall of the Roman Empire. Now I want to deconstruct a merger model. And by the way, I got an A in financial accounting. Regardless of your major, your grade point average is the gatekeeper. Let's be brutally honest here. If your GPA is below a 3.5, your chances are close to zero. It's not personal. It's a screening tool. With tens of thousands of applications, recruiters use GPA as a quick and dirty filter to cut the pile down to a manageable size. A high GPA signals you're smart, you work hard, and you can handle pressure. Is it a perfect metric? No, but it's the one they use. Ideally, you want to be above a 3.7. A 3.8 or 3.9 puts you in a very safe position. If your GPA is low, your only hope is to have an absolutely stellar story in another part of your application, like being a star athlete or having an insane internship, but it is an uphill battle. Finally, let's talk about specific coursework because this is where you can truly separate yourself, especially if you're a non-target major. There are 3 courses that are non-negotiable. You must take them. Number 1. Introduction to Financial Accounting. I don't care if you're a poetry major, you need this class. This is the bedrock of everything. Number 2. Corporate Finance. This will teach you the theoretical underpinnings of valuation and capital structure. Number 3. A class on financial modeling or valuation. If your school offers a dedicated class on building financial models in Excel, it is the single most valuable course you can take. If they don't, you need to learn it on your own through online courses. Walking into an interview and being able to say, "Yes, I've built a 3-statement LBO model from scratch," is an absolute game changer. It takes you from a theoretical applicant to a practical one. So you've picked the right major, you've aced the right classes, and you've got the 3.8 GPA. You've built the perfect academic profile. You're set, right? Not even close. Because the brutal truth is that the right degree from the wrong school is a first-class ticket to the rejection pile. The name on your diploma, the prestige of your university, is arguably the single most important factor in your entire application. And in the next part, we are going to break down the secret hierarchy of universities, the targets, semi-targets, and non-targets, and show you how to win no matter where you go to school. So let's pull back the curtain on Wall Street's unspoken secret. It's a hierarchy, a brutally efficient sorting mechanism that begins the day you get your college acceptance letter. This system is divided into 3 tiers: target schools, semi-target schools, and non-target schools. Understanding where your school fits is the first step in crafting your game plan. Let's start at the top. The target schools. These are the Ivy Leagues and their equivalents, the names that echo in the halls of Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. We're talking about schools like the University of Pennsylvania, specifically the Wharton School, which is arguably the undisputed king. Then you have Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Columbia, and Cornell. Outside the official Ivies, you have giants like NYU Stern School of Business, MIT Sloan School of Management, and Duke. Stanford and the University of Chicago Booth School of Business are also heavy hitters, especially for West Coast and Chicago offices. What makes a school a target? It's not just about prestige or smart kids. It's about a pipeline. It's a deeply entrenched, decades-old system built on 3 pillars: on-campus recruiting, alumni networks, and proximity. First, on-campus recruiting, or OCR. For students at these schools, the banks literally come to you. They set up booths in your student center. They hold polished info sessions with free food, sending their sharpest junior bankers, often recent alumni from your exact school, to sell you on the dream. They conduct first-round interviews in dedicated rooms on campus. The entire process is streamlined. It's a golden conveyor belt that runs directly from your campus quad to a 6-figure job in Manhattan. You don't have to hunt for the opportunity. The opportunity hunts for you. Your resume isn't just one in a pile of 10,000 online applicants. It's in a special curated stack labeled Wharton or Harvard. Second, the alumni network. When a managing director at JP Morgan sees a resume from his alma mater, a switch flips in his brain. It's an instant point of connection, a shared identity. The alumni network from a target school isn't just a list of names. It's a brotherhood. They will take your call. They will respond to your email. They will mentor you and advocate for you because you're one of them. The sheer density of alumni from these schools on Wall Street means you have a powerful built-in army of supporters before you even start. And third, proximity. Many of these schools are a short train ride from New York City, making it easy for students to attend networking events, coffee chats, and final round interviews. It creates a powerful feedback loop. Banks recruit there because the students are close, and the best students go there because the banks recruit there. If you're at a target school, your path is clear, but don't get complacent. The competition is fierce because you're swimming with sharks. Your job is to maximize the advantage. Go to every info session, network with every alum who steps on campus, and maintain a high GPA. The door is wide open for you. You just have to walk through it with confidence. Now let's move to the second tier, the semi-targets. This is where a huge number of successful bankers come from, but their journey requires more grit. These are fantastic schools with strong business programs, like the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business, the University of Virginia's McIntire School of Commerce, Georgetown's McDonough School of Business, Notre Dame's Mendoza College of Business, and UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business. You can also include schools like the University of Texas at Austin, UCLA, and Boston College in this group. At a semi-target, the banks are still interested, but they're not rolling out the red carpet in the same way. They might have a presence on campus, but it's smaller. They'll attend a multi-school career fair instead of hosting a dedicated event just for you. They might post jobs to your school's career portal, but they won't be holding interviews in the room next to your dorm. The key difference for a semi-target student is proactivity. The conveyor belt isn't fully automated. You have to give it a push. You can't just rely on OCR. You have to become a master networker. You're going to spend a lot more time on LinkedIn finding alumni who work at your dream firms. You're going to be sending more cold emails. You might have to take the bus to New York or Chicago on your own dime to attend a networking event that a target school student could just walk to. The alumni network is still strong, but it's more spread out. You have to work harder to activate it. But here's the upside. Bankers respect the hustle. When a semi-target student reaches out, they know that student is hungry. They know they're putting in the extra work. If you can build a strong relationship and prove you're just as smart and driven as the kids from Harvard, you have a very real shot at landing the same job. Your path isn't a straight line. It has a few more turns, but the destination is the same. Finally, we arrive at the third tier, the one that includes hundreds of universities across the country, the non-targets. This is every other state school, every private liberal arts college, every university that isn't on a bulge bracket's official recruiting list. And this is where the underdog story begins. If you're at a non-target school, let me be brutally honest. The system is designed to keep you out. The banks will not come to your campus. Your school's career portal will be a ghost town for high finance jobs. When you submit your resume online, it will likely be filtered out by an algorithm that screens for school names before a human ever sees it. It is, by all accounts, an uphill battle on a 90-degree cliff face. And yet, people from non-target schools break into investment banking every single year. How? They don't play the same game. They create their own. For a non-target student, your entire strategy is built on one word: networking. Not the casual networking of a target school student, but relentless, methodical, strategic outreach. It becomes your part-time job. You will live on LinkedIn. You will use alumni databases to find the one or two people from your school who made it to Wall Street, and you will treat them like gold. Your approach has to be flawless. You're not just asking for a job. You're asking for a story, for advice, for a 15-minute phone call. You are building a genuine connection. You will send hundreds of emails. You will get rejected or ignored 95% of the time. But the 5% who respond become your lifeline. They are your champions, your way in. Non-target students also have to be more strategic with their experience. They often can't get a sophomore summer internship at Goldman Sachs. So they get one at a local, no-name boutique investment bank in their hometown. They work for free if they have to. They build a financial model for a small company's sale. They get real, tangible deal experience that they can put on their resume. Then they leverage that experience to network their way into a slightly better firm, and then a better one, leapfrogging their way up the ladder. They build a narrative. The story of the kid from the state school who out-hustled everyone, who taught themselves financial modeling from YouTube videos, who took a 10-hour bus ride to New York just for a 30-minute coffee chat. When you're a non-target, you can't sell your school's brand, so you have to sell your own. And the brand you're selling is pure, unadulterated hunger. So what does this all mean for you? It means your strategy is entirely dependent on where you start. If you're a high school student, this hierarchy should absolutely influence your college decision if you're set on banking. But if you're already in college, you play the hand you were dealt. You don't complain about the game. You learn the rules and you find a way to win. The school you attend sets the difficulty level, but it doesn't predetermine the outcome. It's a massive factor, but it's not the only one. Because even if you're at the #1 target school in the country, choosing the wrong major can slam the door in your face just as quickly. So what is the perfect major for Wall Street? Is it finance, economics, or is it something completely different like engineering or philosophy? The answer is going to surprise you, and it reveals another layer of the game you need to master. The perfect major for investment banking doesn't exist. That's not a cop-out. It's the first secret you need to understand. The entire concept of a perfect major is a trap. It's a myth perpetuated by anxious college freshmen who think Wall Street is a simple checklist. Go to the right school, pick the right major, get the right internship, and collect your six-figure bonus. But the game is infinitely more subtle than that. Banks aren't hiring a major. They are hiring a mind. They are looking for a very specific type of intellectual athlete, and that athlete can be trained in a variety of disciplines. Instead of thinking about a single best major, you need to think in terms of paths. There are 3 primary paths you can walk to land a job at a place like Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley: the traditional path, the quant path, and the wildcard path. Each path has its own advantages, its own hidden dangers, and requires a completely different strategy to succeed. Let's start with the most obvious, the traditional path. This is your finance, economics, or accounting major. This is the well-trodden highway to Wall Street. Taking this path signals one thing very clearly to recruiters: intent. You didn't just stumble into wanting a career in high finance. You've been preparing for it. Your coursework in financial modeling, corporate valuation, and accounting principles gives you the vocabulary from day one. When an interviewer asks you to walk them through a DCF, you don't freeze up. You've done it a dozen times in class projects. This path provides a clear structural advantage. The recruiting pipeline is built for you. The finance clubs, the alumni networks, the on-campus recruiting events, they are all centered around these majors. You are, in effect, the home team. But here's the brutal truth about the traditional path. It is brutally, suffocatingly crowded. You are a needle in a haystack of needles. Every other top student at every other target school is also a finance major. Your resume, with its list of relevant coursework, looks identical to thousands of others. A 3.7 GPA in finance from Wharton is impressive, but there are hundreds of other students with the exact same profile. You haven't differentiated yourself. You've just qualified for the first round of cuts. The greatest danger of the traditional path is complacency. Students think that by majoring in finance, they've checked the most important box. They believe the major itself is the key. It's not. The major is just the ticket to the stadium. It doesn't get you on the field. To stand out on this path, you have to be exceptional in every other area. Your GPA has to be near perfect. Your internships have to be more prestigious. Your networking has to be more relentless. You are playing the game on hard mode because the competition is a perfect mirror of you. Now let's talk about the second route, the quant path. This is for the STEM majors: engineering, computer science, physics, applied mathematics. 10 or 20 years ago, these students were anomalies in banking interviews. Today they are a prized commodity. Why? Because the nature of finance has fundamentally changed. Modern investment banks are, in many ways, technology companies that deal in capital. The ability to understand complex systems, to code, to analyze massive datasets, and to think with ruthless logic is no longer a nice-to-have skill. It's a core competency. When a bank sees an electrical engineering major from MIT with a 3.9 GPA, they don't see someone who doesn't know what a discounted cash flow is. They see a powerhouse of raw intellectual horsepower. They know this person has survived a curriculum designed to break the brightest minds on the planet. They know this person can work 100-hour weeks because they've already been doing it for years in the library and the lab. They see a problem-solving machine. Teaching a brilliant engineering student how to build a financial model is easy. It's just a new set of variables in a new system. Teaching a finance major the principles of machine learning or statistical arbitrage is nearly impossible. Banks know this. They would rather import the raw talent and teach them the finance than try to teach advanced quantitative skills to someone without the foundation. But the quant path has its own pitfalls. The biggest challenge for a STEM major is proving they actually want to be in finance and that they have the social skills to survive. Banks are wary of the academic tourist, the brilliant coder who sees banking as an interesting puzzle to solve for a couple of years before moving on to a Silicon Valley startup. They need to see a demonstrated, genuine interest. This means you have to go the extra mile. You have to join the finance clubs even if you feel like an outsider. You have to read the Wall Street Journal every single day. You have to teach yourself the basics of accounting and valuation on your own time. Your story can't be, "I'm smart, so I want to make a lot of money." It has to be, "I have a deep passion for solving complex, real-world problems. I've spent 4 years modeling fluid dynamics, and I realize that the most complex and impactful system on the planet is the global flow of capital. I want to apply my quantitative toolkit to that system." You have to bridge the gap between your technical world and the world of finance. If you can do that, you become an incredibly powerful candidate. You have the technical rigor of a scientist and the demonstrated passion of a financier. That's a rare combination. Finally, we arrive at the most difficult, and potentially the most rewarding route, the wildcard path. This is for the humanities majors, the history, philosophy, English, political science, and even classics majors. These are the candidates who, on paper, make absolutely no sense. And that is precisely why they can be so compelling. Hiring a history major from Yale or a philosophy major from Princeton is a power move for a bank. It's a bet on pure, unadulterated intelligence and communication skills. Think about what these majors actually train you to do. A history major learns to synthesize vast amounts of disparate information, identify patterns, and construct a coherent narrative that explains why events happened. A philosophy major learns to deconstruct complex arguments, identify flawed logic, and build a case from first principles with airtight reasoning. What does a managing director do all day? They don't sit there building Excel models. They do exactly that. They read hundreds of pages of documents, synthesize the key information, and then get on the phone with a Fortune 500 CEO to persuade them to make a $10 billion decision. The job, at its highest level, is about critical thinking and storytelling. The wildcard path selects for people who have been rigorously trained in exactly those skills. However, this path is a tightrope walk over the Grand Canyon. For every one successful humanities candidate, there are 100 who fail because the burden of proof on you is immense. You can't just be smart, you have to prove you can handle the math. No one will assume you have the quantitative skills. You have to build them from the ground up on your own. This means taking online courses in financial modeling, getting certifications, and devouring textbooks on accounting and corporate finance. You need to find a way to get a finance-related internship, even if it's at a small, no-name private equity shop, just to prove you can operate in that world. Your story has to be flawless. You need to articulate precisely how studying Thucydides' account of the Peloponnesian War gives you a unique perspective on corporate strategy, or how analyzing Kant's categorical imperative helps you understand fiduciary duty. It sounds absurd, but if you can pull it off, you become unforgettable. You are no longer just another resume. You are the philosophy kid. In a sea of conformity, being memorable is a superpower. So the real answer to what's the perfect major is this. The best major is the one that allows you to build the most compelling narrative about yourself. It's the discipline where you can achieve the highest possible GPA, demonstrating excellence, while simultaneously pursuing activities that build your bridge to Wall Street. A 4.0 GPA in history from a top school, combined with a demonstrated self-taught command of finance, is infinitely more powerful than a 3.3 in finance from the same school. One shows passion, intellectual curiosity, and an insane work ethic. The other shows mediocrity on the path of least resistance. The major, you see, is not the destination. It is the vehicle. Some vehicles, like a finance degree, are like a reliable sedan that takes the main road. Others, like an engineering degree, are like a powerful off-road truck that can forge its own path. And some, like a philosophy degree, are like a classic sports car, incredibly difficult to handle but breathtaking if driven by an expert. The choice of vehicle matters, but what matters more is the skill of the driver and the GPA they earn along the way. So we've established that your major is just one part of your story, and that your GPA is arguably the most critical metric within that story. But what is that magic number? What is the GPA that gets you past the automated resume screens and into the interview room? Is there a hard cutoff? And what if you messed up your freshman year? Is there any way to recover? Or is your dream dead on arrival? The unwritten rules about GPA are some of the most guarded secrets on Wall Street, and they reveal just how unforgiving the screening process truly is. Let's get one thing straight. The idea that a single bad semester, especially your freshman year, permanently disqualifies you from investment banking is a myth. But it's a myth rooted in a very harsh reality. Your dream isn't dead on arrival, but it is on life support, and you are the only one who can pull the plug or resuscitate it. Wall Street doesn't care about fairness. It cares about signals. A low GPA is a negative signal. Your job is to create so many overwhelmingly positive signals that the negative one becomes a footnote, not the headline. The single most important concept here is the upward trend. Bankers are obsessed with charts that go up and to the right. Your academic transcript is no different. A student who starts with a 2.8 GPA freshman year, then gets a 3.5 sophomore year, and finishes with a 4.0 junior year is infinitely more interesting than a student who coasts with a flat 3.4 every single year. The first student has a story. It's a story of struggle, adaptation, and ultimately excellence. It shows grit, maturity, and a steep learning curve. The second student, their story is one of mediocrity. They're predictable. Banks don't pay for predictable. They pay for explosive potential. So how do you manufacture this redemption arc? First, you have to accept the brutal math. If you get a 2.5 GPA in your first year across 30 credit hours, you need to average a 3.9 over the next 90 credit hours just to pull your cumulative GPA up to a 3.5. That means near-perfect grades for 3 straight years. It's a monumental task. This is where a crucial distinction comes into play. Your major GPA versus your cumulative GPA. This is your secret weapon. Let's say your overall cumulative GPA is a 3.4 because that Intro to Geology class you took for an easy A turned out to be your academic kryptonite. But in your finance, accounting, and economics classes, the ones that actually matter, you have a 3.9. You must highlight this on your resume. Put it right next to your cumulative GPA. Major GPA, 3.9. This tells a very specific story. I stumbled when I was figuring things out, but once I found my passion, my focus, I became an elite performer in the subjects relevant to your business. This reframes your narrative from a student who struggled to a finance specialist who excels. But a number on a page is not enough. You need to be able to articulate this story in an interview. When they ask, "Can you walk me through your transcript?" And they will, you can't just say, "I partied too much freshman year." Your answer needs to be a polished, mature reflection. Something like, "My freshman year was a significant period of adjustment. I was learning to balance a new level of academic rigor with newfound independence. Frankly, my initial time management skills weren't where they needed to be. But that experience was a wake-up call. I completely re-engineered my study habits, sought out mentorship from upperclassmen, and focused my energy on my finance coursework, which is where my real passion lies." As you can see, my performance in my major-specific classes reflects that renewed focus and dedication. You've just taken your biggest weakness and turned it into a story about self-awareness, problem-solving, and resilience. 3 of the most sought-after traits in a junior banker. Now let's be clear. Even with a brilliant upward trend and a great story, a sub 3.5 cumulative GPA puts you in the danger zone. Most investment banks use applicant tracking systems, or ATS, to screen resumes. This is automated software that scans for keywords and minimum qualifications. The most common filter? A 3.5 GPA. If you don't meet that threshold, your resume might be digitally shredded before a human ever lays eyes on it. A 3.7 or higher gets you past the machine almost every time. The 3.5 to 3.7 range is the battleground where other factors start to matter immensely. Below 3.5, you are fighting for your life. This is where you must overcompensate with such force that they are compelled to ignore the GPA. Your other qualifications can't just be good. They must be exceptional. Your networking has to be relentless. A low GPA means you cannot afford the luxury of just dropping your resume online and hoping for the best. You need an internal champion. You need an analyst, an associate, even a managing director who can walk your resume over to HR and say, "I know his GPA is a 3.4, but I've spoken with him 6 times. He's one of the sharpest, hungriest kids I've met." We need to give him an interview.
Disclaimer: the information presented is for informational purposes only and is not professional financial, investment, or tax advice. All investments involve risk and may result in partial or total loss. You should always conduct your own research and consult with a qualified financial professional before making any financial decisions. By viewing this video, you agree not to hold the creator liable for any loss or damage arising from your use of the information provided.
That internal referral is the human override to the automated system. It's the only way to bypass the algorithm. Your work experience also needs to be stellar. If your GPA is low, you can't have a generic member of the investment club on your resume. You need to be the president of that club, the one who managed a $50,000 student portfolio and outperformed the S&P 500. You need a prior internship at a no-name private equity shop where you single-handedly sourced a deal, even if it was a tiny one. You need something that makes the recruiter pause and say, okay, the grades aren't perfect, but look at what this person has actually done. And here's a pro-level hack that almost no one talks about. If your GPA is your weak point, go take the GMAT. The GMAT is the standardized test for business school, but you can take it as an undergraduate. If you can score a 730 or higher, which is in the 96th percentile, you can put that on your resume. What does that do? It provides a standardized, objective data point of your intellectual horsepower that directly counteracts a mediocre GPA. A low GPA can be explained away by a difficult transition, a bad professor, or a personal issue. A GMAT score is a cold, hard number that says, I have the raw brain power to handle complex quantitative analysis at an elite level. It's an incredibly powerful signal that you can use to neutralize the negative signal of your GPA. I once knew a student at a semi-target school with a 3.3 GPA. He was dead in the water by traditional metrics, but he had spent a summer building a sophisticated algorithmic trading model for cryptocurrencies. He included the back-tested returns on his resume. During his interviews, he spent less time talking about his classes and more time passionately explaining his model's architecture and risk parameters. The bankers were blown away. They saw a self-starter, a brilliant quantitative mind, and a genuine passion for the markets. They didn't see a 3.3 student, they saw a future rainmaker. He got an offer from a top bulge bracket bank. He didn't recover from his GPA. He made it irrelevant. So the unwritten rule is this: the 3.5 GPA threshold is a line in the sand drawn by machines. To cross it without the grades, you must be so exceptional in other areas that a human is forced to intervene on your behalf. You need a killer story, a powerful network, and undeniable proof of your ability and drive. But this raises an even more fundamental question. We've obsessed over the number, the GPA itself. But what about the class it's attached to? What if you have a perfect 4.0 but it's in art history? Can a philosophy major from a top liberal arts college really compete with a finance major from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School? The answer cuts to the very heart of what investment banks are actually looking for, and it reveals a deep-seated, often unspoken bias within the industry about what kind of smart truly matters on Wall Street. To understand this, you have to peer inside the mind of a managing director at Goldman Sachs. Let's call him Dave. Dave is 45, perpetually exhausted, and has to sift through thousands of near-identical resumes from 21-year-olds who all claim to be passionate about financial markets. He has one primary goal: minimize risk. Not financial risk, but hiring risk. He needs to find an analyst who won't burn out in 6 months, who can learn a discounted cash flow model without having their hand held, and who won't embarrass him in front of a client. Now, 2 resumes land on his desk. One is from a history major at Harvard, 3.9 GPA. Brilliant kid, clearly. Wrote a fascinating thesis on 14th century European trade routes. The other resume is from a student at Wharton, 3.8 GPA. Majored in finance and accounting. President of the Wharton Investment Club. Took classes in valuation, corporate finance, and derivatives modeling since their freshman year. Who does Dave hire? 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 times out of 100, he hires the Wharton kid. And it's not because the Wharton kid is necessarily smarter. The Harvard kid might have a higher raw IQ. But the Wharton kid is a known quantity. He's been pre-screened and pre-trained for this exact job. Going to Wharton is a signal, the most powerful signal an undergraduate can send, that they have been singularly focused on a career in high finance from the moment they chose their university. They already speak the language. They understand the culture. The learning curve is shorter, the integration is faster, and the risk of them deciding they actually hate finance and want to go save the rainforest is significantly lower. The Harvard history major is a brilliant piece of raw clay. The bank would have to mold them from scratch. The Wharton finance major is a prefabricated component, ready to be slotted into the machine. In a high-pressure, time-is-money environment, banks will always choose the component over the clay. This is the fundamental bias. It's a bias towards vocational specificity, and it's why Wharton, despite being just one school within the University of Pennsylvania, has a brand on Wall Street that is, for undergraduate recruiting, arguably more powerful than Harvard's. This same logic creates the next tier of schools, the semi-targets. If the targets are the schools where bulge bracket banks roll out the red carpet, setting up shop in the campus career center for weeks on end, the semi-targets are the schools where they'll make a brief, scheduled appearance. They have a presence, but it's not a guarantee. The fire hose of opportunity is more like a very powerful, well-aimed garden hose. You still have to make sure you're standing in the right spot to get wet. These are schools with phenomenal academic reputations and, crucially, very strong undergraduate business or economics programs. Think of the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business, New York University's Stern School of Business, the University of Virginia's McIntyre School of Commerce, Georgetown's McDonough School of Business, or the University of Texas at Austin's McCombs School of Business. You can also loop in other elite universities here that consistently place kids on the street like Cornell, Columbia, Duke, and Notre Dame. The difference between a target and a semi-target is subtle but profound. At a target school like Harvard or Princeton, the bank comes to you. Information sessions, coffee chats, and first-round interviews are all held on campus. The process is streamlined. Alumni from that bank will come back to their alma mater specifically to recruit more students just like them. It's a well-oiled, self-perpetuating machine. At a semi-target, the student has to do more of the chasing. While some banks will come to campus, many will not. Or they'll only recruit for certain divisions, maybe just the back office or middle office roles, while saving the front office investment banking slots for the targets. This means the hustle factor for a student at a semi-target school increases exponentially. Take an ambitious student at NYU Stern. Their single greatest advantage is geography. They are a subway ride away from every major bank's headquarters. So, their recruiting process isn't just about on-campus events. It's about leveraging that proximity. It's about using LinkedIn to find an NYU alum who works at Morgan Stanley and sending a perfectly crafted email asking for a 15-minute coffee chat. And because they're in the city, they can actually go to that coffee chat on a Tuesday morning before class. They can attend networking events hosted by banks in Midtown Manhattan. They are grinding, pounding the pavement in a way a student in Princeton, New Jersey simply doesn't have to. Now consider a student at the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business. Ann Arbor isn't exactly a global financial hub. Their advantage is different. It's the sheer scale and ferocious loyalty of their alumni network. The Go Blue network is legendary. A Ross student's hustle involves meticulously scouring the alumni database, finding graduates working in banking, and leaning heavily on that shared identity. Their emails will be filled with references to the big house, to shared professors, to a common Michigan experience. They'll fly to New York on their own dime during spring break, not for vacation, but for a grueling week of back-to-back networking meetings they had to fight tooth and nail to schedule. This is the reality for a semi-target student. You absolutely have a shot. A very good one, in fact. The door is open, but you have to sprint through it while the target school student can often just stroll. You have to be more prepared, more polished, and more relentless. Your GPA needs to be airtight. Your technical knowledge has to be flawless because you'll get fewer chances to prove it. You have to build your own recruiting pipeline instead of just plugging into the one the university and the banks have built for you. The banks know this. They know that the kids they hire from Michigan, UVA, or NYU are often the scrappiest, hungriest ones. They've already proven their commitment by overcoming the inherent friction in the recruiting process. In some ways, getting an offer from a semi-target is an even more impressive feat of personal drive than getting one from a target. These two tiers, the targets and the semi-targets, probably account for 70 to 80% of all undergraduate hires at the top investment banks in any given year. It is a small, exclusive, and self-reinforcing club of about 20 to 25 universities. The pipeline is established, the relationships are decades old, and the process is predictable. So what if you're not in that club? What if you're one of the millions of smart, ambitious students who, for whatever reason, be it geography, finances, or family, ended up at a great state school like Ohio State, the University of Florida, or Arizona State University? What if you're at a small, respected liberal arts college that has zero connection to Wall Street? Is the door completely slammed shut? Is your dream of working at Goldman Sachs just that, a dream and impossibility? The answer to that question is what separates the people who make it from those who don't, and it has almost nothing to do with the name on your diploma. It has everything to do with strategy, grit, and understanding a completely different set of rules for a game that is ruthlessly rigged against you. And the first rule of this rigged game is that where you go to school matters more than almost anything else. It's a brutal, unfair truth of the industry, and anyone who tells you otherwise is either lying or completely naive. In the world of investment banking recruiting, universities are unofficially, but very rigidly, sorted into three distinct categories: target schools, semi-target schools, and non-target schools. Understanding which bucket your school falls into is the single most important strategic insight you can have, because it dictates the entire game plan you need to follow. Your strategy for breaking in from Harvard is fundamentally different from the strategy required to break in from the University of Michigan, which is a world away from the strategy you need from the University of Arizona. Let's start at the top with the target schools. Think of these as the Ivy League plus a few other elite institutions. We're talking about Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Penn, especially its Wharton School, Columbia, and Cornell. Then you add in Stanford, MIT, Duke, and the University of Chicago. For business-specific programs, you'd also include NYU's Stern School of Business and maybe Georgetown. This is the A-list. This is the inner circle. If you attend one of these schools, you're playing the game on easy mode. It doesn't mean you're guaranteed a job, not by a long shot. The competition is still ferocious because you're surrounded by thousands of other hyper-ambitious students who want the exact same thing. But the system is built for you. The banks don't just know you exist, they roll out the red carpet. Here's what that looks like in practice. Every fall, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, and every other major bank will have a massive presence on your campus. They will host polished information sessions in your lecture halls with senior bankers, often alumni from your very school, flying in to pitch you on why you should work for them. They will sponsor student investment clubs, host exclusive networking events at upscale venues near campus, and hold coffee chats, where you can sign up for a 15-minute slot to speak directly with an analyst or associate. Most importantly, they use what's called on-campus recruiting, or OCR. This means they post their job applications directly through your university's career portal. They conduct their first round and sometimes even second-round interviews right there on campus in dedicated interview suites. Your resume isn't going into a massive, anonymous online portal with 100,000 other applicants. It's going into a special curated pile reserved exclusively for students from your school. A human being, a recruiter whose entire job is to hire from your university, is guaranteed to look at it. The path is paved for you. All you have to do is be one of the best candidates walking on that golden path. Now let's take one step down the ladder to the semi-target schools. This is a broader and slightly more ambiguous category, but it generally includes large, prestigious public universities with strong business or finance programs and other top-tier private schools. Think of places like the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business, the University of Virginia's McIntyre, UC Berkeley's Haas School, UCLA, USC, Notre Dame, and the University of Texas at Austin's McCombs School. If you're at a semi-target, the game is no longer on easy mode. You've just been bumped up to hard. The red carpet is gone. The banks know who you are and they will show up, but their presence is smaller and far more selective. Maybe only a handful of the top bulge bracket banks will come to campus, and they'll bring fewer people. The info sessions will be packed to the brim, and getting a coveted coffee chat slot will feel like winning the lottery. The on-campus recruiting process still exists, but it's a shadow of what it is at a true target. A bank might only allocate a handful of interview slots for the entire university. The competition for each of those slots is astronomical. While the kid at Harvard is competing against other Harvard kids, you're competing against everyone at your massive state school. This is where networking stops being a helpful supplement and becomes a non-negotiable requirement for survival. You can't just rely on the on-campus process. You have to be proactive. You're spending hours on LinkedIn hunting down alumni who work at the banks you're interested in. You're crafting hundreds of personalized cold emails, hoping for a 10% response rate. You're taking the bus to New York or Chicago on your own dime to try and meet people for a 20-minute coffee. You have to fight tooth and nail just to get your resume in front of the right person, to bypass the online system and get it into that special pile. It's absolutely possible. Tons of semi-target students place into Wall Street every year, but the onus is entirely on you to make it happen. The system isn't going to hand it to you. And that brings us to the third category, the one that applies to the vast, overwhelming majority of college students in America, the non-target schools. This is every other university. From big state schools like Arizona State and Ohio State to smaller liberal arts colleges. If your school isn't on one of those first two lists, you are, by default, a non-target. And if you're at a non-target, you're playing the game on nightmare difficulty, with one arm tied behind your back in the dark. There is no on-campus recruiting for investment banking. There are no info sessions. No coffee chats. The banks are not coming. They may not even know your school exists. Your university's career portal is a ghost town for high finance. Your only option is the dreaded online application. You will perfect your resume, write a killer cover letter, and submit it through the bank's main website. And in 99.9% of cases, it will go into a digital graveyard. It will be screened out by an algorithm that is specifically programmed to filter for keywords and, you guessed it, school names. You will likely never hear back. Not even an automated rejection. Just silence. This is the brutal reality. The kid from Wharton can get 3 interviews with a 3.7 GPA, while the kid from a non-target with a perfect 4.0, a flawless resume, an incredible internship experience can't even get a single phone call. It's not fair. It's not a meritocracy. It is a system designed for efficiency, and that efficiency is built on a foundation of academic elitism. The banks know they can fill their entire analyst class with brilliant, hardworking kids from a dozen schools, so from their perspective, why would they ever bother looking anywhere else? This is why I said grit and strategy are what separate the winners from the losers. Because if you're at a non-target, the standard playbook is useless. You are an outsider and you have to act like one. You have to create your own path brick by painful brick. You have to network with a ferocity that students from target schools can't even comprehend. You have to be so good, so prepared, and so relentless that you force them to pay attention. You have to find a side door, a back window, or just smash through the wall because the front door is locked and bolted shut. So, the first step is to be brutally honest with yourself about where you stand. Are you playing on easy, hard, or nightmare mode? Because your answer to that question will define every single action you take from this point forward. It determines the intensity of your networking, the way you position your story, and the sheer volume of work required to even have a chance. Your degree itself, whether it's in finance, economics, or history, is secondary to the name of the institution printed on it. But here's the critical part. Your starting position does not have to be your final destination. It just defines the battle you have to fight. And for those of you in the semi-target and non-target camps, your war is just beginning. So let's break down the rules of engagement. If you're at a semi-target school, think Vanderbilt, USC, Michigan, UVA, you are fighting a conventional war on a familiar battlefield. You're not an unknown entity. The banks know your school. They might even have a small, dedicated recruiting team that visits once a year. But you are not the priority. You are the second string. While Goldman Sachs is sending 10 partners to wine and dine the Wharton undergrads, they might send a single vice president to your school for a 3-hour info session in a cramped lecture hall. Your challenge isn't getting on the radar. It's proving you belong in the same league as the Ivy Leaguers. Your strategy, therefore, must be one of overwhelming force and flawless execution. You have zero margin for error. The target school kid with a 3.6 GPA is considered solid. You with a 3.6 are considered borderline. You need a 3.8, a 3.9 or higher. Your resume can't have a single typo. Your technical knowledge can't be just good. It needs to be surgical. When you get that one chance, that one interview, you have to be more prepared, more polished, and more hungry than the 10 kids they just saw from Harvard. You are operating with a handicap, and the only way to win is to run faster than everyone else. Your primary weapon is the alumni network, but you must wield it like a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. The target school kid can blast out 100 emails to alumni at a single bank and get 20 replies. You might have only 10 alumni at that same bank. Each one of those contacts is precious gold. You can't afford a sloppy, generic email. You need to do your homework. Read their LinkedIn profiles, find interviews they've given, understand their career path. Your message to them needs to scream, "I didn't just find you in a database. I chose you because your story resonates with me, and I have done the work." You're not just asking for a referral. You're building a strategic alliance with the few people who have already walked the path you're on. You're activating a sleeper cell. You also need to become a master of infiltration. Look at the recruiting schedules for the target schools nearby. Is NYU hosting a Morgan Stanley event that's open to students from other universities? You're there, dressed better than anyone else. Is Columbia's investment banking club holding a stock pitch competition? You find a way to get in the audience and you ask the smartest question during the Q&A. You have to place yourself in the enemy's territory to force the recruiters to see you, to associate your face not just with your semi-target school, but with the high-caliber environment of the targets. You are crashing the party, and you better be the most interesting person there. Now for the non-targets. If the semi-target strategy is a conventional war, yours is a guerrilla insurgency. You are behind enemy lines with no air support and no supply chain. To the big banks, your school, be it Arizona State, University of Kansas, or a small liberal arts college in Ohio, does not exist. It is a blank spot on the map. Your resume will never ever pass an automated screening filter. Human eyes at a bulge bracket bank will not see your application unless you put it there yourself. You are not on the list. You are not in the system. You are a ghost. And that is your greatest advantage. Because you have nothing to lose. Your strategy is not one of flawless execution. It is one of relentless asymmetrical warfare. Your primary weapon is the cold email, and you must learn to love it. You will not send 10. You will not send 50. You will send hundreds, 500, 1,000. You will build a database of every analyst, associate VP, and MD in every group that interests you at every bank you can find. This is your target list, and you will launch a campaign. But this is not about spamming. This is about psychological operations. A bad cold email says, "Hi, I'm a student, please give me a job." It gets deleted in 0.5 seconds. A killer cold email, a non-target's IED, is completely different. It's brutally efficient. The subject line is key. Your university student question on specific deal or topic. For example, University of Florida student question on the Salesforce/Slack M&A valuation. This does two things. First, it shows you're not a random person. You're a student, which is a non-threatening category people are generally willing to help. Second, it shows you've done your homework. You're not asking for a job. You're asking about a specific, intelligent topic that falls within their expertise. The body of the email is 3 sentences. Maximum. Sentence 1. My name is Jane, and I'm a junior at the University of Florida, actively following your team's work in the TMT space. Sentence 2. I was particularly impressed by the strategic rationale behind the recent Slack acquisition and had a quick question about how synergies were modeled for a high-growth, software-as-a-service target. Sentence 3. Would you have 10 minutes to spare in the coming weeks for a brief call to share your perspective? That's it. You are not attaching your resume. You are not asking for an internship. You are demonstrating passion, intelligence, and respect for their time. You are making it easy for them to say yes. You are selling a conversation, not a candidacy. Your goal is not to get an interview from this email. Your goal is to get on the phone. Once you are on the phone, that is your interview. That is your chance to tell your story, to prove your hunger, and to make an impression so strong that they feel compelled to walk your resume down the hall and drop it on the right desk. Every single person you talk to is a potential champion, an advocate who can bypass the entire HR system for you. The second rule of the insurgency is that you must become a specialist. The Harvard kid can afford to be a generalist. They can walk in and say, "I'm interested in banking." You cannot. You must walk in and say, "I am singularly focused on healthcare M&A, specifically in the biotech and specialty pharma subsectors. I've been following the recent IPOs of gene editing companies and have built my own DCF models for CRISPR Therapeutics and Adidas Medicine. I believe the next wave of consolidation will come from big pharma acquiring companies with promising phase 2 trial data." See the difference? You are no longer just a kid from a no-name school. You are an expert in training. You are a source of information. You might even know something the interviewer doesn't. This is called information arbitrage. You are leveraging your time, the one resource you have in abundance, to acquire specialized knowledge that makes you more valuable than a generic candidate from a better school. You pick a niche and you go deeper than anyone else. For both the semi-target soldier and the non-target insurgent, the mission is the same. You have to get seen, you have to get a chance, and when you get that chance, you have to be undeniable. You have to make them forget the name on your diploma and remember the fire in your eyes. It is a brutal, exhausting, and often demoralizing process. It requires a level of grit and resilience that many people simply do not have. But for those who do, it is a path that has been walked before. Every single bank has managing directors who started at schools you've never heard of. They are proof that the walls of Wall Street, as high as they may seem, are not insurmountable. They can be climbed. But to climb them, you need the right gear. You need the right training. You've chosen your battlefield: target, semi-target, or non-target. Now you must choose your weapon. And that weapon, the tool you will use to build your technical arsenal and signal your intent to the world, is your choice of major. Because what you study is the foundation upon which your entire campaign will be built. So let's break down the arsenal. When it comes to undergraduate majors for investment banking, there are three distinct categories, three strategic paths you can take. Think of them as the direct assault, the flanking maneuver, and the special operation. Each has its own advantages, its own risks, and its own set of expectations from the banks you're targeting. First, the direct assault. These are the undisputed, heavyweight champions of Wall Street recruitment. The big three: finance, economics, and accounting. Choosing one of these is the most straightforward, most traditional, and frankly the most common way to signal your intentions. It's like showing up to a gunfight with an M16. Everyone knows what it is, what it does, and that you mean business. Let's start with finance. This is the tip of the spear. A finance major is a direct, unambiguous statement: I want to work in finance. The curriculum is tailor-made for the job. You'll study corporate finance, valuation, portfolio management, financial modeling, and derivatives. You are literally learning the playbook before you even step onto the field. When a recruiter sees finance major from a target school, it's a massive green checkmark. It de-risks you as a candidate. They know you understand the basic concepts, you've been exposed to the terminology, and you won't be completely lost on day one. The downside? It's incredibly common. You'll be competing against a sea of other finance majors, so you have to stand out in other ways: a higher GPA, better internships, stronger networking. Your major alone won't be a differentiator. It will simply be the price of admission. Next in the big three is economics. If finance is the how, economics is the why. An economics degree gives you the 30,000-foot view. You understand monetary policy, macroeconomic trends, market structures, and game theory. This is the context in which all financial transactions happen. Banks love econ majors because they can think big picture. They can connect the dots between a Federal Reserve interest rate hike and its impact on a client's M&A strategy. While you might not build as many discounted cash flow models in your classes as a finance major, you develop a powerful analytical framework for understanding the world. It's seen as slightly more academic, a bit more intellectually rigorous by some recruiters. The key here is to supplement your macro knowledge with practical finance skills. You must prove you can go from understanding the theory of supply and demand to building a three-statement model in Excel. Join finance clubs, take online courses, and get those technical skills locked down. The final member of the big three is accounting. This is the secret weapon. Accounting is, without exaggeration, the language of business. Every deal, every valuation, every investment thesis is built on a foundation of financial statements. If you major in accounting, you understand that foundation better than anyone else. You know the intricacies of the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. You know how they connect, where the numbers come from, and how they can be manipulated. This is an incredible superpower in an interview. When you get a technical question about how a certain transaction affects the three statements, you won't just know the answer. You'll understand the deep logic behind it. Banks, especially in coverage groups that are industry-specific, value this skill immensely. The perception is that it's easier to teach a smart accounting major the high-level finance stuff than it is to teach a finance major the nitty-gritty details of accounting. It is your bedrock of technical proficiency. So that's the direct assault. Finance, economics, accounting. They are the safest, most proven paths. But what if that's not your background? What if your strengths lie elsewhere? This brings us to our second category, the flanking maneuver. The flanking maneuver is all about leveraging a different kind of intellectual firepower. This is the domain of the STEM majors: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. In the modern era of banking, this path has become increasingly respected and sought after. Why? Because banking isn't just about sales and relationships anymore. It's about data, complex modeling, and rigorous quantitative analysis. When a bank sees a candidate with a degree in electrical engineering, physics, or computer science, they don't see a lack of finance knowledge. They see raw intellectual horsepower. They see someone who has survived a brutally difficult curriculum, someone who can solve complex, multi-step problems, and someone who is not afraid of numbers. They see a brain that has been trained to think in a structured, logical, and analytical way. The bank's assumption is simple. If this person can solve differential equations or design a software algorithm, we can teach them how to build an LBO model. This is a powerful signal. It differentiates you from the crowd of finance majors. While they were learning the definition of WACC, you were deriving formulas from first principles.
Disclaimer: the information presented is for informational purposes only and is not professional financial, investment, or tax advice. All investments involve risk and may result in partial or total loss. You should always conduct your own research and consult with a qualified financial professional before making any financial decisions. By viewing this video, you agree not to hold the creator liable for any loss or damage arising from your use of the information provided.
This demonstrates a higher level of quantitative ability, which is a massive asset. The key to making this strategy work, however, is that the burden of proof is on you. You cannot just show up with your math degree and expect an offer. You must demonstrate a genuine, passionate interest in finance. You have to do the work on your own. This means devouring the Wall Street Journal, reading investment banking guides, teaching yourself accounting and valuation, joining finance clubs, and networking relentlessly to prove that this isn't just a random career choice. You have to connect your quantitative skills to the job. You have to say, "My experience in coding taught me to break down complex problems into manageable parts, a skill I know is essential for building financial models." You have to build the bridge for them. If you can do that, you become an incredibly compelling candidate. All the raw intelligence of a STEM major combined with the demonstrated passion of a finance major. Finally, we arrive at the most difficult but in some ways the most impressive path, the special operation. This is the realm of the humanities and liberal arts majors. History, philosophy, English, political science. On the surface, this seems like the antithesis of what Wall Street wants. It is, without a doubt, the path of most resistance. But for the right candidate, it can be a story that no one else can tell. Banks don't hire majors, they hire smart, driven, and compelling people. A great investment banker isn't just a spreadsheet jockey. They are a storyteller. They have to craft a compelling narrative to convince a CEO to sell their company. They have to write clear, persuasive memos and presentations. They have to communicate complex ideas in a simple, elegant way. And what do you spend 4 years doing as a history or English major? You learn to read critically, analyze vast amounts of information, synthesize it into a coherent argument, and present that argument in a persuasive way. These are the so-called soft skills that are, in reality, incredibly hard to master and are the ultimate differentiators at the senior levels of banking. To succeed from this background is a true special operation. Your GPA can't just be good, it has to be stellar, near perfect. You are starting from a perceived deficit, so you have to be exceptional in every other category. Your networking has to be relentless and masterful. You need to build a small army of advocates inside the banks. And your self-study in finance has to be bulletproof. You need to know your technicals better than the finance majors, because you will be grilled on them harder than anyone else. You have to prove you want this more than they do. Your story has to be airtight. I studied philosophy because I'm fascinated by logical frameworks, and I see financial valuation as the ultimate application of a logical framework to the real world. Or, I studied history because I learned to analyze how small events create massive, cascading effects, a skill I'm eager to apply to understanding market dynamics. It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy. Most who try will fail. But those who succeed are often seen as the most interesting, well-rounded, and potentially highest-ceiling candidates in the entire applicant pool. They are proof that raw ambition and intelligence can triumph over a traditional background. So you have the direct assault, the flanking maneuver, and the special operation. Each is a viable path to an investment banking career. None of them guarantee success. The major you choose is your opening move on the chessboard. The first chapter in the story you will tell recruiters. It sets the tone for your entire candidacy, but it is only the beginning. Because regardless of the major you choose, there is another, non-negotiable credential that can make or break your entire campaign before it even begins. That non-negotiable credential is your grade point average. Your GPA. It's the great filter, the automated gatekeeper that stands between you and a human being reading your resume. Before a managing director ever hears your story, before an analyst ever sees your carefully crafted cover letter, a piece of software will scan your application for a number. And if that number doesn't meet the threshold, your application is digitally vaporized, sent to a folder that no one will ever open. It's brutal, it's impersonal, and it's the first, most unforgiving battle you will fight. So what is the magic number? What is the GPA that unlocks the gates to Wall Street? The answer is, it depends, but not in the way you might think. There isn't one single number, but rather a series of tiers, of cutoffs that determine your fate. The absolute hard floor for most bulge bracket and elite boutique banks is a 3.5. Let me be perfectly clear. If your GPA is below a 3.5, your chances of getting a first-round interview through the standard online portal are statistically close to zero. The algorithm will simply discard you. You could have discovered a new method for valuing derivatives in your dorm room, but if you have a 3.49, the machine says no. This is the first great wall. But clearing the 3.5 hurdle doesn't mean you're safe. It just means you're in the game. The next tier, the one that makes you a genuinely competitive applicant, is the 3.7 to 3.8 range. This is where recruiters stop seeing your GPA as a potential red flag and start seeing it as a neutral or positive signal. You've proven you can handle a rigorous academic workload. You're considered reliable. You've checked the box. And then there's the top tier, the 3.8+, the 3.9s, the 4.0s. These are the GPAs that turn heads. These numbers don't just check a box. They make a statement. They scream discipline, consistency, and a relentless work ethic. When a recruiter has a stack of 1,000 resumes from Ivy League schools, all with impressive clubs and leadership positions, the 3.9 stands out from the 3.6. It's an easy, quantifiable way to sort the pile. It signals that you are, in their eyes, a lower risk hire. Now, context matters immensely. A 3.6 in nuclear engineering from MIT is viewed very differently than a 3.6 in communications from a state university. Banks aren't stupid. They understand that some majors in some schools are significantly more demanding. They use internal, often unwritten, adjustments. If you're at a top target school like Wharton, Harvard, or Stanford, there might be a little more leeway. They know the curriculum is brutal and the competition is fierce. A 3.6 from one of these schools might be viewed as equivalent to a 3.8 or 3.9 from a non-target school. But this is a dangerous game to play. You should never assume that the name on your diploma will save a mediocre GPA. It might help at the margins, but the filter is the filter. Consider the story of two candidates. Let's call them Michael and Sarah. Michael is at a top Ivy League school, a target in every sense of the word. He's sharp, personable, and has a decent resume. But his GPA is a 3.4. He got a C+ in organic chemistry his sophomore year, and it's been an anchor on his GPA ever since. He applies to 30 banks online. He gets 30 automated rejection emails, usually within minutes. The door is slammed shut before he can even knock. Now look at Sarah. She's at a large state school, a semi-target at best. But she is a machine. She has a 3.95 in finance. She's meticulously planned every course, every project, every exam. She applies to the same 30 banks. Her resume sails through the algorithmic filters at 25 of them. She's now in the pile that will actually be reviewed by a human. Sarah gets 15 first-round interviews. Michael gets 0. Who do you think has a better chance of landing an offer? The brand name of Michael's school didn't matter. His low GPA was a non-starter. Sarah's high GPA was the key that unlocked the entire process for her. Why this obsession? Why does a number that reflects your performance in Renaissance art history have any bearing on your ability to build a financial model at 3 a.m.? Because to a bank, your GPA isn't a measure of your intelligence. They already assume you're smart if you're applying. Your GPA is a proxy for your work ethic and your attention to detail. Investment banking is a job of 1,000 tiny crucial details. One misplaced decimal in a spreadsheet can kill a multi-billion-dollar deal. One formatting error in a presentation can make the entire team look sloppy to a client. The job requires a sustained, borderline obsessive level of focus and diligence over brutally long hours. Your transcript is a 4-year record of your ability to do just that. A 3.9 GPA tells a recruiter that for 4 straight years you showed up, you did the work, you paid attention to the details, and you performed consistently at a high level even in classes you didn't like. Proves you can grind. It de-risks you as a candidate. A 3.4 GPA, even with a good excuse, introduces a question mark. Did they slack off? Are they inconsistent? Will they crack under the pressure when they're on their 18th straight hour of checking comps? Banks are incredibly risk-averse, especially when it comes to their junior talent. They would rather hire the safe 3.9 than take a chance on the more interesting 3.4. So what if you're listening to this and your heart is sinking? What if your GPA is a 3.2, a 3.3, a 3.4? Is it over? No, it's not over. But your strategy has to change. You can no longer rely on the front door. The online portal is your enemy. You have to find a side door, and that means you need a compelling story to tell. First, look for an upward trend. A cumulative GPA of 3.3 is not great. But if your GPA for your junior year was a 3.9, that's a story. That's a powerful narrative of growth and maturity. On your resume, you should list both your cumulative GPA and your major GPA or your junior/senior year GPA. You frame it as, I had a rough start to college, I wasn't focused. But then I found what I was passionate about, I buckled down, and this is the result. Banks love a comeback story. Second, if you had a legitimate, documented reason for a bad semester, a serious illness, a family emergency, you can briefly and professionally explain this in an optional addendum or cover letter. The key word is briefly. No longue, sob stories. Just a factual statement. My GPA in the fall of 2022 was impacted by a significant family health issue that required my attention. That's it. It provides context without making excuses. Third, you can try to offset it with a standardized test score. If you have a 3.3 GPA but you score a 760 on the GMAT, that sends a powerful signal. It tells the bank that while your academic record may be inconsistent, you have the raw intellectual horsepower to do the job. It's an objective, standardized data point that can help counterbalance a subjective transcript. But the most important strategy by far for a low GPA candidate is networking. You have to bypass the algorithm. Your resume cannot be just another anonymous PDF in a digital slush pile. It has to be hand-delivered, digitally speaking, by an employee at the firm who can vouch for you. You need an advocate, an insider who can walk your resume down the hall to the recruiter and say, I know his GPA is a little low, but I've spoken with him. He's sharp, he's hungry, you should give him a shot. That is how you overcome the GPA filter. It requires 10 times the effort, but it is your only path forward. One final, critical point on this topic, rounding. Is it okay to round a 3.68 up to a 3.7 on your resume? Yes, that's generally considered acceptable. Is it okay to round a 3.64 up to a 3.7? Absolutely not. The standard rule is you can round to one decimal place, but you never ever round the first digit up if the second is a 4 or lower. The reason is simple. Banks will verify your transcript. If they ask for your official transcript and see a 3.64 after you wrote 3.7, that's not rounding. That's lying. And it's an instant blacklisting from the firm, and potentially from the entire industry. The risk is catastrophic and the reward is minimal. Don't do it. Your GPA is the first gatekeeper. It's a number that carries an immense and frankly disproportionate amount of weight. Can feel unfair, reducing 4 years of your life to a single data point. But it is the reality of the recruiting gauntlet. You must clear this hurdle, whether by brute force with a stellar number, or by a clever strategy that gets you around the wall. But even with a perfect 4.0, you are still just a number on a page. You've proven you can succeed in the classroom, but you haven't proven you can survive in the bullpen. You haven't proven you can do the work. To do that, you need to acquire the one credential that speaks louder than any grade, the one experience that separates the contenders from the pretenders. The summer analyst internship. That's it. That's the entire game. Everything we've discussed, the target schools, the GPA, the networking, the technical prep, all of it is designed to get you one thing: a seat at the table for a 10-week high-stakes paid audition. Because that's what an internship is. It's not a trial run. It's the final interview. It is, without a doubt, the single most important credential you can acquire. Think about it from the bank's perspective. Hiring a full-time analyst is an enormous investment. They're committing hundreds of thousands of dollars in salary, bonus, and training to a 22-year-old. A 45-minute behavioral interview and a few technical questions can't possibly de-risk that decision. It's like trying to buy a house after only looking at the pictures online. You might get lucky, or you might discover the foundation is cracked and the plumbing is a nightmare. The internship is the bank's home inspection. For 10 weeks, they get to see how you perform under real-world pressure. They see how you react when a managing director throws a last-minute request on your desk at 7 p.m. on a Friday. They see how you handle the soul-crushing boredom of spreading comps for 10 hours straight. They see if your PowerPoint slides are pixel perfect, and if you catch the tiny formatting error that everyone else missed. They don't just hear you say you have a good work ethic. They witness it at 3 a.m. when you're on your 5th coffee, meticulously checking every number in a 100-page deck. This is the ultimate proof. Your 3.9 GPA from Wharton proves you're smart. Your networking proves you're personable. Your technical knowledge proves you studied. But none of that proves you can actually do the job. The internship is where the theoretical becomes brutally practical. It's the bridge between the classroom and the bullpen, and a shocking number of people fall off that bridge. So, what are they actually looking for during these 10 weeks? It's not about being a financial modeling genius on day one. They know you're new. They expect you to be green. What they're evaluating is a specific set of traits, a kind of unspoken curriculum that determines whether you get the return offer. First and most importantly is your attitude. This is the foundation of everything. They are testing your grateful for the grind quotient. Can you approach every single task, no matter how menial, with energy and a positive outlook? You will be asked to do things that feel insulting to your intelligence. You'll be ordering dinner for the team. You'll be printing and binding 50-page pitch books. And when you find a single typo, you'll be reprinting and rebinding all 50 pages at midnight. The intern who sighs, who rolls their eyes, who complains. They are silently crossed off the list. The intern who says, "No problem, happy to do it," and then meticulously ensures the binding is perfect and the pages are flawlessly collated? That's the person they want. They're not just testing your ability to do the task. They're testing your character when faced with the unglamorous reality of the junior banker role. They need to know you're a team player who will do what needs to be done without an ego. Second is your attention to detail. This is non-negotiable. In investment banking, a misplaced decimal point isn't a typo. It's a multi-million-dollar mistake that can kill a deal and ruin a firm's reputation. They will scrutinize everything you produce. Is the font size consistent? Are the logos on the page perfectly aligned? Did you double-check every single number against the source document? They will give you tasks specifically designed to test this. An associate might ask you to pull some numbers and will intentionally give you vague instructions, just to see if you come back and ask clarifying questions or if you just make a dangerous assumption. They are looking for a healthy paranoia, a deep-seated need to check your work not once, not twice, but 3 times before you hand it over. They need to be able to trust your work product because in the heat of a live deal, they don't have time to be your proofreader. Third is pure horsepower and endurance. Can you handle the physical and mental demands of the job? The stories are true. You will work 80, 90, even 100-hour weeks. You will experience a level of sleep deprivation you didn't think was possible. The question is, can you still produce A-level work when you're running on fumes? Can you stay focused and positive on a Wednesday night when you haven't seen the sun since Monday morning? This is a war of attrition. Many interns burn out. They get sloppy. Their positive attitude cracks. The bank is watching this closely. They're not looking for superheroes, but they are looking for resilience. They need people who can manage their energy, stay organized under extreme stress, and maintain a high standard of quality even when they are exhausted. They are looking for professional athletes, not hobbyist joggers. And finally, there's the airport test. It's the most subjective but arguably one of the most important criteria. The test is simple. Would your team members want to be stuck in an airport with you for 8 hours during a travel delay? Are you someone they can put in a room with a client? Are you socially aware? Can you make small talk? Are you interesting or at least not annoying? This is about fit. You can be the most brilliant modeler in the world, but if nobody on the team enjoys working with you, you will not get a return offer. They are building a team that will spend more time with each other than with their own families. They want people who are low ego, coachable, and generally pleasant to be around. So go to the team drinks. Ask your analyst about their weekend. Be a normal, likable human being. It matters more than you can possibly imagine. Attitude, attention to detail, horsepower, and the airport test. That is the final exam. If you can spend 10 weeks demonstrating excellence across these 4 pillars, the return offer is practically a certainty. The internship is your chance to make yourself indispensable. You do this by being reliable, by asking smart questions, by taking meticulous notes so you never have to ask the same question twice, by anticipating the needs of your team, by always offering to help, even when you're swamped. By the end of the summer, the decision is usually obvious. There are the interns who get it, and there are those who don't. The ones who get it have proven they have the raw material to be molded into a successful analyst. They've shown they can survive and even thrive in the unique high-pressure ecosystem of an investment bank. So let's bring this all home. The journey to a Wall Street offer is not about finding a secret password or a magic bullet. It is a systematic process of building a portfolio of proof. Your choice of school and major is the first layer. Your GPA is the second. Your resume, filled with relevant experiences, is the third. Your networking is the proof that you're serious and socially capable. Your technical preparation is the proof that you have the baseline knowledge. But all of that just gets you the chance to audition. The internship is the final definitive piece of evidence. It's where you prove you have the grit, the precision, the resilience, and the temperament to succeed. It's the credential that turns a maybe into a hell yes. The path is not easy. It's a relentless, competitive, and often exhausting climb. But it is not a mystery. The blueprint is clear. Build your credentials layer by layer. Master the skills. Play the game with integrity and a relentless work ethic. And when you finally get your shot, that 10-week window in the summer, leave absolutely everything on the field. Because that internship isn't just a line on your resume. It's the key that unlocks the entire career.
Disclaimer: the information presented is for informational purposes only and is not professional financial, investment, or tax advice. All investments involve risk and may result in partial or total loss. You should always conduct your own research and consult with a qualified financial professional before making any financial decisions. By viewing this video, you agree not to hold the creator liable for any loss or damage arising from your use of the information provided.